What is the work that must be done in order to show up authentically and willing to be vulnerable? So before I even consider showing up or being more vulnerable in my relationships and in my communication, I want to connect for a second with why that's important to me. What are my reasons for wanting to be more authentic or more vulnerable? We hear authenticity and vulnerability, they're big buzzwords today, but why? Why are they so important? Do you actually want to be more authentic and vulnerable? So personally, when I ask myself that question, it's clear to me that the reason I enjoy being authentic and vulnerable in my relationships is that it leads to greater connection between me and the other person. Almost inevitably, I notice that when I'm willing to be more honest, reveal my honesty in a way which is gentle and caring for the other person, that it creates connection. It just does. Authenticity creates connection. That's my experience time after time. So I want connection. And with that connection, I often find a sense of safety. I feel more safe in the relationship when there's more honesty. When there's no honesty or things are being hidden or not said, I feel very unsafe. So I want connection, I want safety. And I also find it almost fun. It's so unexpected what will happen when I open my mouth and say something authentically. Like, shit, where's this gonna go? So there's an excitement there for me, which I really enjoy. It brings life into the conversation. So first, connect with your why. Why do you want to be more vulnerable? Do you want to be more vulnerable? Maybe in this relationship or with this person, yes, you'd like to be a bit more authentic or share yourself a bit more authentically. Okay, why? And if I find myself afraid to do so, which I often do feel, there's a bit of fear before I am authentic with certain people, I like to remind myself of times where being authentic and being vulnerable has really served the connection. So instead of just paying attention to whatever fear, I'm not safe, what's going to happen? Okay, that's fine, that's often there. But also I like to remind myself, hang on, I can trust my authenticity. I have done so before and it has actually led to connection. Even though in my mind right now, I'm super scared of where's it going to lead and if they're going to get upset or offended and what's going to happen. I'm just going to trust my authenticity. So I find that helpful to remind myself of positive experiences I've had in being vulnerable. Another thought I have is, vulnerability often leads to connection for me, but that doesn't mean that I have to be vulnerable with every person in every moment to extreme extents. No way. I want to choose when I express my vulnerability. My vulnerability is a gift that I give to other people. I don't want to give it without considering for a moment whether it works for me right now. So I like to choose the context that I am vulnerable in and the people I'm vulnerable in. Maybe with work it's not suitable in a work context, or maybe with some colleagues it is. And maybe it is only to a certain extent. Maybe I'll be vulnerable this much, express my feelings, my deeper desires, but this much, my challenges. And maybe with other people, it's a wider amount of vulnerability. So I want to choose when to be vulnerable, because for me, my tendency is to go, I want to be vulnerable all the time and authentic all the time. It's amazing. It's so missing in the world. But I end up going past my boundary of what's right for me. And then it becomes very draining. Because sometimes I don't really want to be authentic and vulnerable. Sometimes I just want to speak freely without thinking and have a light flowing conversation. That's also important. So make sure you choose when and how much to be vulnerable. And don't... Okay. Leaning my phone on my computer, trying to find the right angle. Good luck. And don't do what I tend to do, which is I tend to turn being vulnerable into the the right way to speak or the best way to speak and develop a superiority over, yes, being vulnerable is the best and the most evolved way to speak. Fuck that. Meaning, don't fall into that trap. Being vulnerable is not something you have to do. Being vulnerable is something you get to choose to do if you want. So keep it that way. And lastly, if I do decide that, yes, there's this person that I want to share a few things with, that I've been holding back, I want to be more authentic with them, great. What I like to do is to check with them first. Yep. I like to check with them first. And I say something like, hey, I'd love to share some things that have been on my mind. Does it work for you right now? I don't want to assume that the other person is available for me right now. Everyone's got so much going on in their life. I don't want to assume that the other person is available to receive my authenticity right now. It might just not be suitable for them. So I want to check with them. I want to give them the choice to say yes to receiving my gift of honesty. Yeah, and not be in that mindset of like, I have something important to say, they should listen to me right now. My partner needs to listen to me right now. This is important. This is about our relationship. Okay, yes, it's important. But that doesn't mean that the other person has to right now be available to listen to me. Maybe they're not. And I find in my own experience, when I just stop for a moment before I start sharing openly and check in with the other person, it's a much more flowing, pleasant. It just sets the tone for a much more connecting conversation. Because I'm checking with them, not assuming that they're available, giving them choice. If this resonated in any way, give me a thumbs up if it does, write no if it doesn't, and if it does, I'd love to hear what I said that resonated for you.